Hi everyone, thank you very much for having me, and thank you to Habib for putting on this event and inviting me along. Even though I've moved slightly away from SUDS to another area of work, but I think no sponge city is complete without the definitive ecosystem engineer, and of course that's the beaver. Luckily London already has two beaver enclosures with another one on the way. I've been to Enfield, it's amazing. They recently doubled it in size. It's 8 animals living there. They've made massive changes to that little bit of river they've got in that enclosure. So amazing. I haven't been to Ealing yet, but it's on my hit list for sure. And the GLA's local nature recovery strategy published last week heavily mentions beavers. So it's a really exciting time to be working on this area of work. And 1 year ago, just over a year ago, 13 months ago, the law changed in England, allowing wild reintroductions to take place in England. And we now have thriving populations in Kent and Somerset and Devon. We're working hard on assessing the benefits and also the risks of animals there. But first, I want to get you in the mind of a beaver, because I think it's helpful to think about the kind of thinking of these animals when you're looking at the benefits, because it depends on where they are. So this is a prey animal. It spent a millennia being an easy lunch to wolves and lynx and other big predators. I saw there was a study in Eastern Europe on a family of wolves, and 1/3 of their diet was beavers. So this animal is hardwired to keep itself safe. Why is that relevant? Because the way they do that is they must have a consistent water level where they are. So they're obsessed with getting about a foot in depth, consistent water level. So if they are in a small channel, a little river that doesn't have a consistent water level, it can be in flood or it can be in a trickle during the summer, they will build dams and they will create a system of ponds, often 4, 5, 6 ponds, one after another. And that will provide them this consistent water level that allows them to have their entrance to their burrow underwater and feel safe from predators. So that's what's going on in their brains when they're creating these dams. They don't do it because they know that we want some wetlands there. That it's a safety mechanism. But there's a flip side to that. If the water level is consistent, say in a river that has weirs on it and is quite wide, they don't make wetlands, they don't build dams, they burrow into the side and they happily live in the side of that river without ever building a dam in their life. And we have lots of rivers like that in England as well. So when we're looking at the benefits of these animals, it really depends where. And we can get massive benefits from them living in certain locations, but also there are some places where they'll live and they won't show those benefits. So I think that's a useful way to think about it that is balanced. So perhaps obvious, but our national approach of the Environment Agency. So why are they paying me to think about beavers all day? It's because we want to help the return of beavers as a significant part of a natural functioning, climate-resilient ecosystem. We want to support the government's, as an arm's-length body, we want to support the government's ambitions for reintroducing beavers, maximising benefits and minimising risks, embed ways of working, so we have a number of projects ongoing that will help support management of wild populations. And we want to work alongside DEFRA as the kind of parent body, Environment Agency and Natural England, who are leading the applications of new wild populations. So where are they currently? Triangles are enclosures, so you can see London, we've got our 2 enclosures there. I think there's a 3rd one on the way, but that's kind of the spread at the moment. And the blue areas are the wild populations. And when you're thinking about beaver populations, you're thinking catchments. So it's not impossible, but it's quite rare that they jump catchments. So once they're in a catchment, you'll see this population growth. And once the population growth is at its sort of peak and starting to come down, that's when they're most likely to start jumping catchments. before that, they can do it. There's some animals are strange. They'll go off and do a 40-kilometre, search and end up in a completely different catchment, but it's quite rare. So when we're thinking about population growth of these animals, it's by catchment, usually. And you can see the biggest is down in Devon and Kent. There's actually a lot of animals there, but it's quite a small catchment. And then Somerset and Cornwall as well. So I described that kind of population curve and how the animals may jump catchments. The Tay in Scotland is ahead of us, about 30 years that they've been there. And then you've got the otter in Devon and Kent Stour, and then the others are much newer. So that kind of describes that population curve, and it's something that's really important to us when we're trying to project future costs of having these animals in England. Is looking down the line and looking at our catchments in terms of where we're going to start to see more interactions and more trouble, but also more benefits. So when we're looking at the benefits, obviously it's about the right locations, but in the right locations, in those smaller channels where beavers create wetlands, bring water out of the channel, create braided streams, you see massive benefits to flood risk. If you can picture those numerous ponds, numerous areas where water's been moved out of the catchment, out of the river, and reconnected with the floodplain. And the University of Exeter showed a 30% reduction in peak flows before and after beaver habitats. Also, you think about drought and water resilience, and that water being held and being retained. And they do this for free. And they self-maintain. So we had an incident where some frisky bullocks ran through a beaver dam in Devon, trashed it, trying to get to some cows on the other side of it. And they rebuilt it in 10 days, and it was as it was before, and the water level was back up. And that dam it was about 100 metres wide, and it had been completely smashed through. So it's the kind of scope for these animals producing natural flood management in the right places, and then self-maintaining it, and then living, generation after generation in this location, producing benefits and holding water, reconnecting the floodplain is enormous if you think of it in those kind of longer terms. Then there's obviously geomorphic water quality benefits. Sediment is stored, water is filtered through these systems, through these complex wetlands, and there's evidence showing large improvements in water quality before and after beaver habitats. The ecology is also improved, so for example, pollinators, a recent study showed that there were 50% more pollinators in a beaver wetland compared to a man-made wetland in the same county. That was in Devon. So the biodiversity range and abundance is massively increased from beavers being there, because they just let nature take the reins. You have trees, dead standing wood, all these unusual kind of habitats that are really important for insects that we would just not put in there. And they also can do it over a large scale, as I described. And then there's the positive kind of human interaction. So it's a much loved kind of story. People really like the idea of beavers being around until they flood your house or the access track into your farm, or indeed your farmland. So there's definitely opportunities and challenges with that, but it's an area of work the Environment Agency does that is, on the whole, is very positive, and it gets a really great reaction from the public on the whole. So I talked a bit about the risks. They're prolific burrowers. They will burrow into embankments. They may flood access tracks, is really common, because access to a field may be right close to where a stream is, and they'll use that location to build a dam, which will then flood the access track and cause issues. But this is a quote from our chief engineer. He said that a balance we collectively need to engineer is that by working together with nature, we can create sustainable solutions that preserve the incredible work of beavers and safeguard key infrastructure and those that rely on it. And we should be alert but not alarmed. So we need to be alert to these risks, to the fact that they may dam in places we don't want them to, they may burrow into assets we don't want them to, but the benefits are huge, and it's the bigger picture of kind of the return of this enigmatic animal to our landscapes is really important. And of course, felling trees. So they forage, they fell trees sometimes for dam building, but also to eat. They really like eating alder and willow. And that can be an emotional thing for people who live in those locations. They don't want to see those trees be felled. So it's quite an easy fix. You put a wire mesh around the bottom of the tree and protect it. So we use a 5-step management approach. This is my colleague taking down a dam. The first step would be get advice, check that it is beavers you're talking about, you've got in your river. Second is, can you make space? Can you give space to them so that they're not having the impact on your infrastructure or your home or what it is? Like, can you just give a few meters either side of the river to give them that space? And then beyond that is taking action. So an unlicensed action would be removing a new dam that's less than 2 weeks old, removing an older dam, and then a high impact action, it's something like trapping and removing the animals, and that's a kind of last resort. So this is a quick video. So this just gives you an idea. I described the animals kind of lumbering around and being a bit of a slug. So this is one of our assets. This is a gauging station, and this animal tried to build a dam on the end of this gauging station 400 times in 2 weeks. Just all night, every night, just came back, and we kept going back and well, I personally didn't, but my colleague who was in the photo kept going back and removing the dam. And eventually, after like 2 or 3 weeks, he just gave up and he moved on. He was a lone animal, but that's the kind of interaction that we're going to see, and it is kind of expensive sending a team out there, having to keep monitoring. And this is an important asset for us. It provides us with data to know whether we're experiencing a flood to help us warn and inform. So it is important. I'll go quickly because I think I'm running low on time, but the Beaver Manual is something we're producing. So how do you beaver-proof a scheme? We want this to be an off-the-shelf electronic manual that people can go to and look at and say, okay, I've got beavers, I want to protect a series of trees, how much is it going to cost, who can do it for me? If I want to protect a culvert, I need to create some kind of screen. These are the different options, different diameters, something that you can easily go to and use. So we're producing that and looking at inspection frequency and understanding the risk and likelihood of different activities and where we can give space and where we do need to take actions. And we're also rolling out some training. At the moment it's internal only, but we're going to open it up to other risk management authorities on beaver signs. So how do you recognise that they're there? Because they're only really out at night, so it's rare that you see them. And that's it. Thank you.